Emma was nothing more than a tired young cleaner trying to make it to work on time. But one cruel splash of muddy water was about to change her entire life in ways nobody could imagine. The woman who humiliated her thought it was just another funny moment to laugh at. What she didn't realize was that someone powerful had witnessed everything, and he never ignored injustice. The morning was freezing cold, the kind that made the city feel lifeless. Gray clouds hung low in the sky, while rainwater still covered the streets from the storm the night before. Emma carefully walked along the roadside, clutching a tiny paper bag holding her breakfast and a pair of old cleaning gloves. Her uniform was washed so many times the color had started fading, and the soles of her shoes were nearly torn apart. Still, she kept walking fast. Being late was not an option. Now when her cleaning job at Crownville Towers was the only thing keeping food on the table for her and her little sister. As she stepped closer to the main road, the roar of an expensive engine shattered the silence. A white luxury SUV sped toward her like the driver owned the entire street. Before Emma could move away, the tires slammed through a deep puddle. Muddy water exploded into the air, drenching her from head to toe. Her hair, face, uniform, breakfast bag, everything was soaked in filthy brown water. For a second, the world around her went silent. Then the SUV slowed. The tinted window rolled down halfway, revealing a glamorous woman covered in diamonds and attitude. Her red lipstick shined perfectly under oversized sunglasses as she laughed without shame. "Maybe next time, don't stand where cars belong," she mocked coldly before speeding away again. Emma stood frozen in the middle of the sidewalk. Her fingers trembled around the ruined paper bag. Her eyes burned with humiliation, but she forced herself not to cry. She bent down quietly, picked up her things, and continued walking as if her heart hadn't just been crushed in public. But she wasn't alone. Across the street, a black luxury sedan sat parked in silence. Inside was Ethan Cole, a billionaire CEO known for staying away from attention. He had seen every second of it. The splash, the laughter, the pain Emma tried desperately to hide. His jaw tightened as he stared down the road where the SUV disappeared. He recognized the driver instantly. Vanessa Johnson, the city's famous fashion queen. Beautiful, rich, adored by millions, and cruel when nobody was watching. Ethan slowly picked up his phone, his expression unreadable. "Find out who that girl is," he said calmly. "I want every detail." Emma arrived at Crownville Towers looking like she had survived a disaster. Mud stains covered her uniform. Her wet shoes squeaked across the floor, and strands of hair clung to her exhausted face. The moment she entered through the employee entrance, her supervisor, Mr. Clark, glared at her with disgust. "Emma, you're late," he snapped. "And what exactly happened to you?" She lowered her head. "A car splashed. I don't need excuses," he cut her off sharply. "Get to work before the guests arrive." Emma swallowed the lump in her throat and quietly walked toward the cleaning room. Some co-workers looked at her with pity, others whispered behind her back, but nobody offered help. Nobody ever did. She changed into an old backup uniform and immediately started scrubbing floors as though nothing had happened. But inside, she was breaking. Every time she bent down to mop the marble floors, her back screamed with pain. Still, she kept moving. Losing this job wasn't an option. Not when her younger sister Olivia depended on her for everything. Their tiny apartment barely had enough heat at night, and some days Emma skipped meals just to make sure Olivia could eat properly. Meanwhile, miles away in a glass skyscraper overlooking the city, Ethan sat silently inside his office while his assistant handed him a file. "Her name is Emma Davis," the assistant explained. 23 years old. Works 2 cleaning jobs. Lives in West Pine with her younger sister. Their mother died 2 years ago. Ethan stared at the photograph attached to the report. It showed Emma smiling softly beside a little girl, even though her own clothes looked worn and cheap. Something about that smile hit him harder than expected. "She didn't deserve what happened," he muttered quietly. His assistant looked surprised. "Do you want me to step in?" Ethan leaned back slowly, his eyes still fixed on Emma's photo. "Not yet," he said. "I want to understand who she really is." At that same moment, Vanessa Johnson stood inside her luxury penthouse, surrounded by mirrors, cameras, and designer clothes worth more than most people's yearly salaries. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from fans and fashion brands desperate for her attention. She smiled proudly at her reflection while adjusting a gold necklace around her neck. "That girl should have moved out of the way," Vanessa scoffed while sipping her expensive smoothie. "Honestly, she's lucky I didn't hit her." Her assistant laughed nervously, though even she looked uncomfortable. Vanessa never cared. In her world, people were divided into two groups, winners and nobodies. And she believed Emma belonged in the second category. Back at the hotel, Emma's day felt endless. Her arms ached, her stomach growled with hunger, yet she kept whispering tiny prayers under her breath while cleaning. "Just survive today," she murmured. "Just one more day." Around lunchtime, she slipped behind the building carrying the saddest meal imaginable, a dry piece of bread and a small bottle of water. Sitting alone on an old wooden crate, she carefully unwrapped the bread like it was something precious. That was when Ethan appeared nearby, wearing a simple cap and dark sunglasses. He pretended to check messages on his phone, but his attention stayed fixed on her. He noticed everything: the way she ate slowly to make the food last longer, the way she kept checking her phone, probably hoping for a message from her little sister, the way exhaustion sat behind her eyes, yet she still carried herself with quiet dignity. There was no makeup, no expensive clothes, no fake smiles for social media. Just a young woman the world kept hurting, who somehow refused to become bitter.
Welcome to Wild Shadow Tales. We do not just tell stories, we make you feel them. Smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell because trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next.
Something inside Ethan shifted. Emma reminded him painfully of his late mother, a woman who had suffered silently her entire life while pretending she was okay. He walked away without speaking, but by then, a dangerous idea had already formed in his mind. "She has no idea," he thought quietly, "but everything is about to change." The next morning, Emma woke before sunrise. She helped Olivia get dressed for school, tied her shoelaces carefully, packed her lunch, and kissed her forehead gently. "Be good today, okay?" Emma smiled. Olivia hugged her tightly. "You too, Emmy." When Emma arrived at Crownville Towers wearing the same backup uniform from yesterday, something strange happened. Inside her locker sat a small paper bag she had never seen before. Confused, she opened it slowly. Inside were brand-new cleaning gloves, a fresh warm sandwich wrapped in foil, and a handwritten note. "For the girl who keeps her dignity in a cruel world." Emma stared at the message in disbelief. The sandwich was still warm. She couldn't remember the last time someone had done something kind for her without expecting anything in return. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. Far away in his office, Ethan watched the hotel security footage quietly. Because of a business partnership with the building, he had legal access to the cameras. Seeing Emma's reaction made him nod slightly. "Small steps," he whispered. Meanwhile, Vanessa sat on a television talk show bragging about her newest fashion collection while the audience applauded her elegance and beauty. But the second cameras stopped rolling, her smile vanished completely. "My coffee is cold," she snapped furiously at her staff. "Fire whoever made it." Nobody dared argue. That was Vanessa's true face behind cameras. Cold, arrogant, heartless. But cracks were beginning to form in her perfect world. That evening, Ethan made another private phone call. "I want Emma Davis moved to VIP floor maintenance," he ordered calmly. The regional manager sounded confused. "Sir, she's just a cleaner." Ethan's voice turned icy. "No, she's someone you underestimated." The next day, Emma was sweeping the hotel lobby when the head supervisor suddenly called her over. "Emma Davis," he said while checking a clipboard. "Starting tomorrow, you've been reassigned to VIP floor maintenance. Better pay, better hours." Emma blinked in shock. "Sir, are you sure? I never applied for that position." "It's already approved," he replied shortly. "Congratulations." As she walked away, whispers immediately spread across the lobby. How did she get promoted so fast? She probably flirted with somebody important. Girls like her always find shortcuts. Emma heard every word but stayed silent. Deep inside, though, a small spark of hope finally began to grow. That night, when she told Olivia the news, her little sister nearly cried with happiness. "See," Olivia whispered while hugging her tightly. Good things finally happened to good people, but neither of them knew the truth. From the shadows, Ethan continued watching over her quietly. He visited the hotel more often now, always disguised, always observing. The more he watched Emma, the more he admired her kindness, her patience, and the strange strength she carried despite everything life had done to her. And then, later that same night, Vanessa Johnson received an envelope at her office. Inside was a photograph, a clear picture of her SUV splashing muddy water all over Emma. Attached to it was a single handwritten note. "Not everyone stays silent forever." Vanessa's fingers tightened around the photograph as anger flashed across her face. "Whoever sent this has a death wish," she hissed. She ripped the note into tiny pieces and tossed them into the trash. But even after doing that, the uneasy feeling inside her refused to disappear. For the first time in years, Vanessa Johnson no longer felt untouchable. Somewhere out there, somebody had seen the truth behind her perfect image, and they weren't afraid of her money. Meanwhile, Emma arrived at work and quietly opened her locker, expecting nothing but cleaning supplies and exhaustion. Instead, another folded note waited inside. "Keep shining. The world notices your light, even when people pretend not to." Her chest tightened as she read the words again. Whoever this mystery person was, they saw something valuable in her that nobody else ever had. Emma didn't understand why these little gifts affected her so deeply, but for the first time in a long while, she felt less invisible. Her first day on the VIP floor felt like entering another world entirely. The air smelled of expensive perfume and fresh flowers. Crystal lights sparkled across polished walls, and even the silence felt rich. Emma walked carefully through the halls, trying not to draw attention to herself. But despite her nervousness, her work stood out immediately. Every surface gleamed after she touched it. From a nearby lounge chair, Ethan watched her quietly behind a newspaper and dark sunglasses. He noticed the way she greeted every guest with genuine kindness, even the rude ones who barely acknowledged her existence. Eventually, he lowered the paper and approached her casually. "Excuse me," he asked politely. "Could you point me toward the Sky Lounge?" Emma turned with a soft smile. "Of course, sir. I'll show you." As they walked together, Ethan studied her carefully. "How long have you worked here?" "Almost 2 years," she answered honestly. "It hasn't been easy, but it helps me take care of my sister." "And you still smile through all of it?" he asked quietly. Emma gave a tiny shrug. "Complaining won't change my situation. I just try to do my best." Ethan stopped walking for a second, his expression softening. "You do more than your best," he said. "You make this place feel human." Emma laughed awkwardly, embarrassed by the compliment. She thanked him and continued working, unaware that Ethan's admiration for her was growing stronger every day. Across town, Vanessa sat inside an elegant restaurant with her father, though irritation was written all over her face despite the expensive makeup hiding it. "Someone's trying to destroy my image," she snapped while pushing her untouched drink aside. "People online keep posting things about that stupid incident. It's becoming embarrassing." Her father calmly folded his napkin. "Or maybe," he replied coolly, "you're finally facing consequences." Vanessa scoffed. "It was just a splash of water." "No," her father corrected sharply. "It was disrespect, and now people are seeing who you really are." For a moment, Vanessa said nothing. Deep down, she knew he wasn't entirely wrong. Back at Crownville Towers, Emma opened her locker again later that evening and found a bouquet of fresh flowers resting inside. No message this time, just flowers. She touched them carefully, almost afraid they weren't real. Nobody had ever done something so thoughtful for her before. Whoever was behind all this wasn't trying to impress her with money. They were trying to remind her that she mattered. But as Emma's confidence slowly grew, jealousy began spreading among the staff. Tina, a senior cleaner who had worked there for years, watched Emma with bitterness in her eyes. Funny how she suddenly gets promoted, Tina muttered. Girls like her always find a rich man somewhere. Emma noticed the whispers, the cold looks, the sudden silence whenever she entered a room. But instead of fighting back, she kept working harder. Later that afternoon, Ethan requested service specifically from Emma's section. When she entered the private lounge, she was surprised to find him sitting alone. There's nothing to clean, he admitted with a small smile. I just wanted to thank you properly for helping me before. Emma blinked. Sir, I was only doing my job. Ethan leaned back slightly. What if you could do something else? Anything you wanted? For the first time, Emma hesitated before answering. Honestly, I'd love to study hospitality management someday. Maybe run a hotel instead of cleaning one. She smiled sadly. But dreams are expensive. Ethan memorized every word she said. That same night, jealousy turned dangerous. Tina secretly entered the supply room and switched Emma's cleaning chemicals with a slippery solution that could cause accidents. The next morning, chaos exploded across the hotel when an elderly guest slipped near the lobby entrance. The manager stormed through the hall furiously. Who cleaned this floor? Emma's heart dropped. Minutes later, she stood trembling inside the office while accusations flew at her from every direction. I swear I followed protocol, she said desperately. I would never risk someone getting hurt. But nobody believed her. Nobody except Ethan. The moment he heard about the incident, he ordered security footage to be reviewed immediately. When the video played, the entire room went silent. Tina had been caught clearly switching the chemicals. The manager looked horrified. Emma, we owe you an apology. Relief hit Emma so hard tears filled her eyes instantly. She walked out shaken, humiliated, but finally cleared of blame. From a distance, Ethan watched quietly. She still has no idea I'm protecting her, he thought. But someday she will. Meanwhile, Vanessa's problems kept growing. As she scrolled through social media later that night, her face darkened with panic. A blurry image of her SUV had gone viral online with the caption, "Money can buy luxury, but not class." People were beginning to connect the dots. Who keeps spreading this? Vanessa screamed at her assistant. Casey hesitated nervously before speaking. Maybe apologizing would help. Vanessa let out a bitter laugh. Apologize? To some cleaner? But even she could hear how weak her confidence sounded now. Back at the hotel, Emma slowly regained everyone's respect after the truth came out. Managers greeted her warmly now, and co-workers who once ignored her suddenly acted friendly. Tina was suspended immediately. Emma never celebrated Tina's punishment. She simply stayed quiet and focused on her work. That afternoon, Ethan returned once again. But this time, there was no disguise. Emma was arranging flowers in the lobby when he approached her directly. You again, she teased lightly. You really love this place. Ethan smiled. I like watching good things grow. Emma narrowed her eyes suspiciously. You're not just a guest, are you? He chuckled softly before extending his hand. Ethan Cole. Emma froze instantly. The Ethan Cole? She whispered in shock. I prefer just Ethan, he replied calmly. And before you panic, yes, I've been watching you. Emma looked completely speechless. I saw what happened the day Vanessa splashed you, he continued gently. I saw how embarrassed you were and how you kept walking anyway. Her smile faded slightly as painful memories returned. You didn't deserve that, Ethan said firmly. And I couldn't forget it. Emma stared at him, unsure whether to feel grateful or overwhelmed. You don't owe me anything, Ethan added softly. I just wanted you to know someone finally saw you. That night, Emma walked home with emotions twisting inside her chest. For years, rich people had looked through her like she didn't exist. But Ethan looked at her differently, like she was worth listening to. Still, fear lingered in her mind. Men like Ethan lived in worlds far above hers. So why did it feel like he genuinely cared? The next morning, Emma's thoughts were interrupted when a sleek car suddenly slowed beside her on the street. Her stomach tightened instantly. Vanessa. The window slid down slowly, revealing her sharp smile hidden behind dark sunglasses. You're Emma, right? Vanessa asked coldly. Emma stepped back cautiously. Yes. Vanessa tilted her head slightly. You've become very popular lately. People suddenly think I'm some monster because of you. I never told anyone anything, Emma replied firmly. Vanessa leaned closer. You didn't need to. Playing the innocent victim works just as well. Emma's expression hardened. I never wanted pity. I only wanted respect. Vanessa laughed mockingly. Careful with Ethan Cole. Men like him get bored quickly. Don't confuse attention with love. Then she drove away, leaving silence behind her. Emma stood there shaken, but not destroyed. Later that afternoon, Ethan waited for her inside the hotel cafe, with a folder resting on the table. What's this? Emma asked curiously. Ethan pushed it toward her slowly. A scholarship. Her eyes widened as she opened it. Full hospitality training. Fully paid. Emma's hands trembled so badly, she almost dropped the papers. Why would you do this for me? She whispered. Ethan's voice softened. Because you spent your whole life surviving without asking anyone for help. And people like you deserve opportunities too. Tears filled Emma's eyes before she could stop them. Across the room, hidden behind a pillar, Vanessa watched everything happen in silence. And suddenly she realized something terrifying. The muddy water she had splashed onto Emma that morning hadn't ruined her life. It had awakened it. That evening, Emma sat alone in the hotel's rooftop garden, holding the scholarship letter against her chest while city lights sparkled beneath the dark sky. Her entire life had been filled with sacrifice, exhaustion, and disappointment. Yet somehow, against all odds, hope had finally found her. A few minutes later, Ethan joined her carrying 2 cups of hot chocolate. You look like someone whose mind is racing, he said gently. Emma smiled faintly. I'm scared this isn't real. It's real, Ethan assured her. And you earned every bit of it. She looked down at the letter. I used to think people like you never notice people like me. Ethan grew quiet for a moment before answering honestly. Maybe I didn't before. His eyes softened. But my mother changed that. Emma looked surprised. She was a cleaner too, Ethan admitted quietly. She raised me alone. Worked herself sick just so I could have opportunities she never had. Emma stared at him differently after that. I rarely talk about her, Ethan continued, because rich people love pretending they built themselves alone. But the truth is, strong women carrying impossible burdens are the reason men like me exist. For a second, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt warm instead of awkward. The following morning, the hotel publicly announced Emma's scholarship during the monthly staff meeting. To her shock, applause filled the room. Even employees who once whispered about her now stood clapping proudly. Emma tried holding back tears, but she couldn't. However, not everybody celebrated her rise. Vanessa stormed into her father's office later that day, furious beyond control. Why is everyone obsessed with that girl? She shouted. She's just a cleaner. Her father slowly removed his glasses and looked directly at her. No, he said calmly. She's a woman who earned people's respect. That's something money can't buy. Vanessa clenched her jaw tightly. And you, her father added coldly, still don't understand the difference. For once in her life, Vanessa had no comeback. That evening, Ethan walked Emma home through quiet streets glowing under soft yellow lights. For the first time, Emma found herself laughing freely beside someone without worrying about embarrassment or judgment. When they reached her apartment building, the front door suddenly creaked open and Olivia rushed outside excitedly. I heard you laughing from upstairs, Olivia shouted before hugging Emma tightly. Then she noticed Ethan standing nearby. Is he your boyfriend? She asked innocently. Emma nearly choked in embarrassment while Ethan laughed warmly. I'm Ethan, he said gently while crouching slightly to Olivia's level. And I've heard you're the most important person in Emma's life. Emma wrapped an arm protectively around her sister. She is my life. Ethan looked at the 2 sisters standing together in the dim light, protecting each other against a world that had never been kind to them. And in that moment, something inside him changed completely. After Olivia returned upstairs, Emma walked Ethan toward the gate. They stood there quietly beneath the streetlight, neither of them wanting the night to end. Ethan looked at Emma under the soft glow of the streetlight, a quiet smile resting on his face like he had finally found something he'd been searching for his whole life. Funny, isn't it? he said gently. All of this started with a splash of mud. Emma's breath caught as she looked into his eyes. So much had changed in such a short time that part of her still struggled to believe it was real. Maybe, she whispered softly, that wasn't the end of my story. Maybe it was the beginning. And she was right. Within weeks, Emma's story spread far beyond Crownville Towers. A local blogger posted an article titled Asterisk From Mud to Miracle, the cleaner who captured a billionaire's heart. Asterisk, nobody expected it to explode online the way it did. Overnight, thousands of people shared her story. Comments flooded social media. This woman deserves the world. Finally, a story where kindness wins. She stayed humble after everything. That's real strength. Emma stared at her phone in disbelief the first time Olivia showed her the article. Fame was never something she chased. She only wanted stability, a better life for her sister, and maybe one day the chance to breathe without fear. But now the entire city seemed invested in her journey. At the hotel, things felt different too. Employees who once ignored her suddenly greeted her warmly. Managers asked for her opinions during meetings. Guests complimented her professionalism. Emma still walked quietly through the halls, but there was confidence in her steps now. She was no longer shrinking herself to make others comfortable. At school, she worked harder than anyone. Her instructors quickly noticed her intelligence, discipline, and natural leadership. Every assignment she completed reminded her that maybe she had been capable of more all along. She just never had the chance to prove it before. And Ethan? He stayed close, but never possessive. He supported her without trying to control her life. He listened when she spoke, encouraged her when she doubted herself, protected her when she was attacked. Everyone around them could see what was happening long before either of them admitted it out loud. Ethan Cole was falling deeply in love, but not everyone was happy watching him arise. Vanessa's bitterness turned poisonous. Unable to handle the attention Emma was receiving, she secretly hired a shady blogger to spread lies online. Within hours, fake headlines began circulating everywhere. Cleaner manipulates billionaire for luxury lifestyle. Was Emma Davis pretending to be poor? She planned this from the start. The rumors spread viciously. By lunchtime, hotel staff were whispering again. Some looked at Emma with suspicion. Others avoided her completely. Emma sat alone in the break room, staring at the screen in disbelief while tears slowly filled her eyes. She had worked so hard to escape humiliation, yet somehow it had found her again. Without saying a word, she packed her bag and left work early. But this time, Ethan refused to stay silent. The very next morning, reporters gathered outside Cole Estates after Ethan unexpectedly announced a live press conference. Cameras flashed wildly as he stepped in front of the microphones, calm but visibly angry. Emma Davis is not a gold digger, he said firmly. She is one of the strongest, most honest women I have ever met. The room went silent instantly. People are quick to judge kindness when it comes from someone poor. Ethan continued. Maybe instead of attacking her, we should question why humility threatens people more than arrogance does. Reporters exchanged stunned looks. And for the record, Ethan added coldly, anyone trying to destroy her reputation will answer to me personally. The crowd erupted in applause. Back in her tiny apartment, Emma watched the speech on television with trembling hands covering her mouth. Nobody had ever defended her like that before. Nobody had ever stood between her and the cruelty of the world. That evening, a delivery arrived at her door. One single red rose, and a handwritten note. Let them whisper. I'll always speak the truth about you. Ethan. Emma pressed the note against her chest as tears rolled down her cheeks. For years, she had survived feeling invisible. But now, for the first time in her life, she felt chosen. As the months passed, Emma continued growing into the woman she was always meant to become. Her scholarship opened doors she never imagined possible. She excelled in every class, impressed senior management at the hotel, and slowly transformed from employee into future leader. People no longer introduced her as the cleaner. Now, they said her name with respect. Meanwhile, Vanessa's world collapsed piece by piece. Investigators eventually traced the fake articles directly back to her. When her father found out, his disappointment was colder than anger. "You didn't just humiliate that girl," he said sharply. "You humiliated this family." Within days, Vanessa lost access to company accounts, luxury privileges, and even her position on the board. Her credit cards were frozen. Her assistants disappeared. Invitations stopped coming. For the first time in her privileged life, Vanessa was left alone with herself, and silence terrified her more than poverty ever could. One evening, Ethan invited Emma to dinner, not as a billionaire helping someone less fortunate, not as a businessman mentoring an employee, just as a man who genuinely wanted to spend time with the woman he loved. This time, he drove himself in a modest car without security or attention. They ate dinner on the rooftop of a quiet little restaurant overlooking the glowing city skyline. "You changed something inside me," Ethan admitted while watching her softly. "Before you, I thought success was about power, money, control." Emma smiled shyly. "And now I think success is finding someone whose heart still stays kind after life gives them every reason to become cold." Emma looked down, blushing. "I still don't understand why you chose me," she whispered honestly. Ethan reached across the table and gently took her hand. "Because in a world full of loud people pretending to matter," he said quietly, "your silence spoke louder than all of them." For a while they simply sat there together in peaceful silence, and somehow that silence felt more intimate than words ever could. Later that night, Ethan walked Emma home again, but before reaching her apartment, he stopped suddenly. Emma looked around and realized exactly where they were standing. The puddle. The road where Vanessa had humiliated her months ago. Ethan smiled softly. "This place tried to break you." Emma stared down at the pavement before answering quietly. "Instead, it changed me." He squeezed her hand gently. "No," he corrected. "It revealed who you already were." Emma smiled through tears. "Vanessa threw mud at me," she whispered. "But somehow, you turned it into something beautiful." Ethan looked at her like she was the most important thing in the world. "And now," he said softly, "you're blooming." 1 year later, Crownville Towers hosted a massive gala celebrating the hotel's 20th anniversary. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above hundreds of wealthy guests while music drifted through the ballroom like a dream. Then Emma walked in. The room slowly fell silent. She wore a simple sky blue gown with no diamonds, no designer labels, no dramatic makeup. But somehow, she outshined everyone there. Confidence radiated from her naturally now, not the arrogant confidence of wealth, but the quiet confidence of someone who survived pain without losing herself. Guests turned to stare. Some whispered her name. Others applauded softly, because Emma Davis was no longer the forgotten cleaner walking through hotel hallways unnoticed. Tonight, she was the guest of honor. Beside her stood Ethan, his eyes full of pride and love, so obvious it no longer needed hiding. He hadn't proposed yet, but everyone could already tell his heart belonged entirely to her. When Emma's name was called, she stepped onto the stage while the ballroom erupted into applause. The hotel director handed her a crystal plaque honoring her courage, leadership, and inspiration to the company. Emma took a shaky breath before speaking into the microphone. 1 year ago, she began softly, I was just a girl walking to work in broken shoes with mud on her clothes. The ballroom became completely silent. I felt invisible, she continued, like the world had already decided my worth before I even spoke. Her eyes drifted toward Ethan. But sometimes one cruel moment and one kind person can change everything. Several people in the audience wiped tears from their eyes. I'm not standing here because life was easy, Emma said firmly. I'm standing here because I kept going when giving up would have been easier. Then she smiled gently at Ethan. And because kindness is more powerful than status will ever be. The applause that followed shook the ballroom. Later that night, after the gala ended, Emma quietly returned to the street where her journey first began. The road had been repaved now. Smooth, clean, peaceful. Slowly, she slipped off her heels and stepped barefoot onto the pavement. Ethan watched curiously. What are you doing? Emma looked down at the ground, where she once stood, humiliated and broken. "I'm leaving behind the version of myself that believed she was worthless," she whispered. Without hesitation, Ethan removed his shoes too and stepped beside her barefoot. Equal, not billionaire and cleaner, not rich and poor, just two people who found each other in the middle of pain. Side by side, they walked slowly down the empty street together. And somewhere behind them, the memory of muddy water no longer felt painful. Because sometimes life throws mud not to destroy a flower, but to plant it. The end. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more emotional and unforgettable stories.